Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Gurudev. Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev. ISKCON Guru Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shishiko Nitai Mayapur Shashi ki jai, Shri Purushottam Das Thakur ki jai. So have you got that black book? So it's the appearance day today of a great Vaishnava called Purushottam Das Thakur. He was engaged in pastimes with Lord Chaitanya. Let's see if we can find it here. Thank you. There's no marker. Oh, okay. Since birth, Purushottam Das Thakur was merged in the service of the lotus feet of Nityananda Prabhu. In Krishna Lila, he was Dharma, one of the cowhead boyfriends of Krishna and Balaram. He was the 10th Gopal. He was the son of Sadashiva Kaviraj, the grandson of Kamsari Sena. Formerly in Krishna Lila, Sadashiva Kaviraj was Chandravali Gopi, and Kamsari Sena was Ratnavali Gopi. Purushottam Das Thakur's son was Kanu Thakur. It is said that just after Kanu Thakur's birth, his mother died. When he was about 12 days old, Sri Nityananda Prabhu took him to his home in Kadadaha. When he was 5 years old, he went to Vrindavan with Janava Mata, and upon seeing the ecstatic symptoms of Kanu Thakur, the Goswamis gave him the name Kanu Thakur. Purushottam Das Thakur sometimes lived in Sukha Sagara. All the deities installed by Purushottam Das Thakur were formerly situated in Baladangrama. But when the temple was destroyed, the deities were brought to Sukha Sagara. When that temple merged in the bed of the Ganges, the deities were brought with Janavamata's deity to Sahabadanga Badigram. Since that place has also been destroyed, the deities are now situated in the village named Chandu Degrama. Jai, Shri Purushottam Das Thakur Prabhu ki jai. Few places for you to visit there the next time you're in India. I'll just put that marker in. Reading from Nectar Devotion, Srila Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. And this section is the character of one in ecstatic love. So this is one quality, detachment. The senses are always desiring sense enjoyment, but when a devotee develops transcendental love for Krishna, his senses are no longer attracted by material desires. This state of mind is called detachment. There is a nice example of this detachment in connection with the character of King Bharat. In the 5th canto, 14th chapter, verse 43 of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated, Emperor Bharat was so attracted by the beauty of the lotus feet of Krishna that even in his youthful life, he gave up all kinds of attachments to family, children, friends, kingdom, etc., as though they were untouchable stools. Srila Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and chapter 13 is the behavior of a perfect person. And this is a conversation between Prahlad Maharaj, who was the son of Hiranyakashipu, the late Hiranyakashipu, and a sage, but it doesn't say the sage's name, but it does say that he imitated the behavior of a python by lying on the ground and only eating wherever came his way. So Prahlad is asking him about his kind of outlook on life and his faith that he has in Krishna. So this is text 27. Sukham ajatmano rupam, sukham ajatmano rupam, saveho paratis tanu, saveho paratis tanu, mana samsparshajan dristva, mana samsparshajan dristva, bhogan swapshyami samvishan, bhogan swashyami samvishan, sukham ajatmano rupam, saveho paratis tanu, manasam sparshajan dristva, bhogan swapshyami samvishan, sukham ajatmano rupa, saveho paratis tanu, manasam sparshajan dristva, bhogan swapshyami samvishan. Bolo. Sukham ajatmano rupa, saveho paratis manasam sparshajan dristva, bhogan swapshyami samvishan. Sukham kanatmano rupam, bhoga samsparshidam visa, sukhamasmano rupam, saviho paratistanu, manasavaspitam dristva, bhogan swapshyami samvishan, sukhamasmano rupam, saviparatistanu, manasavaspitam dristva, bhogan swapshyami samvishan. Sukham, happiness, Asya, of him, Atmana, of the living entity, Rupam, the natural position, Sava, all, Iha, material activities, Uparati, completely stopping, Tanu, the medium of its manifestation, Manasam Sparshajan, produced from demands for sense gratification, Dristva, after seeing, Bhogan, sense enjoyment, Swapshyami, I am sitting silently thinking deeply about these material activities. Samvishan, entering into such activities. Translation: the actual form of life for the living entities is one of spiritual happiness, which is real happiness. This happiness can be achieved only when one stops all materialistic activities. Material sense enjoyment is simply imagination. Therefore, considering this subject matter, I have ceased from all material activities and am lying down here. Responsibly, please. The actual form of life for the living entities is one of spiritual happiness, which is real happiness. This happiness can be achieved only when one stops all materialistic activities. Material sense enjoyment is simply imagination. Therefore, considering this subject matter, I have ceased from all material activities and am lying down here. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The difference between the philosophy of the Mayavadis and that of the Vaishnavas is explained herein. Both the Mayavadis and the Vaishnavas know that in materialist activities there is no happiness. The Mayavadi philosophers, therefore, adhering to the slogan Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, want to refrain from false materialist activities. They want to stop all activities and merge in the supreme Brahman. According to the Vaishnava philosophy, however, if one simply ceases from materialist activity, one cannot remain inactive for very long, and therefore everyone should engage himself in spiritual activities which will solve the problem of suffering in this material world. It is said, therefore, that although the Mayavadi philosophers strive to refrain from materialist activities and merge in Brahman, and although they may actually merge in the Brahman existence, for want of activity, they fall down again into materialistic activity. Aruya krichena parampadam tata patanchita. Thus, the so-called renouncer, unable to remain in meditation upon Brahman, returns to materialistic activities by opening hospitals and schools and so on. Therefore, simply cultivating knowledge that materialistic activities cannot give one happiness and that one should consequently cease from such activities is insufficient. One should cease from materialistic activities and take up spiritual activities, then the solution to the problem will be achieved. Spiritual activities are activities performed according to the order of Krishna. Anukulyena Krishna Shilanam. If one does whatever Krishna says, his activities are not material. For example, when Arjuna fought in response to the order of Krishna, his activities were not material. Fighting for sense gratification is a materialistic activity, but fighting by the order of Krishna is spiritual. By spiritual activities, one becomes eligible to go home back to Godhead and then enjoy blissful life eternally. Here in the material world, everything is but a mental concoction that will never give us real happiness. The practical solution, therefore, is to cease from materialistic activities and engage in spiritual activities. Yugyatat kamano nitra loko jam kama bandhana. If one works for the sake of pleasing the Supreme Lord Yugya or Vishnu, one is liberated. One is in liberated life. If one fails to do so, however, he remains in a life of bondage. Om Agyanatimiranda Shagananjana Shakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Melobistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swabhadantika Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanshakapatrubhischa Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So the Python sage is saying that the actual form of life is one of spiritual happiness, which is real happiness. And this happiness can be achieved only when one stops all material activities. So the difference between real happiness and so-called happiness is that one is temporary, and therefore, however long you have that happiness for, it will eventually lead to misery because it will go away. It's just a question of how long it takes. And however much happiness it gave you is then how much sadness it will give you when it leaves. So that's not real happiness. Real happiness is something which has no beginning and no end. So that which is eternal is what actually exists. Krishna says that of which there is no change is eternal, exists. He actually says that that's what exists. So something that actually exists is something that's eternal. And of something which changes, there is no duration. That doesn't actually exist. It only appears to exist. So it seems like you're happy, but it's only actually happy when it's eternal. Although it's just not really happy. It's like giving somebody £1 million and then you snatch it back out of their hands after 30 seconds. So you could say for 30 seconds he was happy, but it would be better if you could just keep the £1 million. Then he would be happy. So whatever you get, it gets taken away from you in due course of time. And the more attached, then the more painful when it's snatched away from you. So the art of being in the material world is how to just accept things as they come in due course, by the natural way of things, and use that in the service of Krishna for as long as it's with you. And then when it goes, in due course of time, including the body itself, we just accept that in a very detached way. So that takes training, actually, to be able to do that, because the default is to whatever you get your hands on in the material world, you try and hold on also as hard as you can. And then when it's snatched away, then it's very painful. It's interesting, if you ever do any gardening, usually you know if it's not a weed, because when you pull it, it comes out really easy. And if it's a weed, you have to really pull like anything. So our attachments are like weeds, and we're deeply attached. And the process of devotional service and purification of the consciousness is to loosen it, so that we can leave it behind. When death finally comes, we can just leave, rather than and there's a whole thing, going on as we're dragged out of the body into another material body. So material sense gratification is simply imagination. Therefore, considering this subject matter, I've ceased from material activities. So you have the sensation of the senses being pleased, and then you have the mental conception. So say, for instance, you're looking forward to going on holiday, and then finally you're aware you're in Tenerife, and you've got your shorts on and your goggles, and you've got a big ice cream, and everything's brilliant. And then after that week passes by, you go back to work, and you take with you a mental impression of what it was. And also before you went, you had a mental impression of what it was going to be. So the mental impression of what it was going to be is imagination. And the mental impression of what it was just becomes another form of imagination. And they just become different figments of the mind. Both the past and the future are figments of the mind. And the only thing that is real is what's taking place right now. And that is, Bhaktivinoda Thakur refers to that now as the eternal present. It's one time, I can do a little bit of palmistry. So, he said, no one is going to die. He said, no. And so the idea is to become aware of the eternality of the soul and the temporariness of all the fleeting things that are going past us, and not to have these mental impressions. Eventually, they say the only thing you have left in life, at the end of life, are your memories. And most of them you can't remember as well. You just sit in front of the TV, sucking them in. 90 years old, dribbling down the front of your shirt, and all you've got are memories, because you can't retain anything in the material world other than a mental impression. So Prabhupada says in the purport that the difference between Mayavadis and Vaishnavas is explained here. So the Mayavadi, they see that everything is false in the material world, but their solution is then just to refrain from everything. I remember I was doing book distribution one day, and I bumped into a Buddhist, and he says, "Oh, I'm just off to the library." Or had he just come? I think he just come from the library actually. So he says, "I'm going through all the books of the Second World War. I'm looking at all the photographs." He said, "A strong desire has come up in me to try and enjoy again. I'm thinking I can enjoy again in the material world. So I'm trying to convince my mind that there's no enjoyment here by looking at all these terrible things that took place in the Second World War." So it's all mental platform. Okay, we want to become convinced that everything is false, the Mayavadi does, and then the conclusion is, okay, so then there's no point trying to enjoy. So that's their way of trying to extricate themselves from the material energy. But it doesn't really solve the problem of having the desire to enjoy. So even if you refrain from everything because you see it's false and it's all misery, and you do that for some time, and you go into the impersonal Brahman, eventually, sooner or later, a desire will pop up back in the heart to try and enjoy. So the desire to enjoy isn't wrong. It's just trying to do it in the material world is wrong. And Susukam Kartam Avyayam, if you want to experience real pleasure, then by practicing devotional service and Krishna consciousness, then we can experience eternal pleasure. But that is a bit of an acquired taste. Rupa Goswami says, Shak Krishna Nama Charitadi Sitapya Vijaya. He says, in the beginning it tastes very sour. Although the holy name is sweet, like sugar candy, to somebody with the jaundice of avignata ignorance, when he's taking the sugar candy, it tastes very, very bitter. And myself, I had hepatitis for some time. And the last thing you want in your mouth when you've got hepatitis is something sweet, because it just tastes terrible. And then you know you're becoming cured when the sweet things start tasting nice again. Then you know, okay, I'm getting healthy. Similarly, when we're chanting the holy name and performing devotional service, if we're really enjoying that, really relishing it, then that shows we're becoming healthy again, spiritually healthy. So the Mayavadi solution isn't really a solution at all. It's just a distraction from the real solution. Let me become convinced that everything's false, and let me become like a stone and not interact with anything. It's a bit like a man, he goes to the doctor and he's got a sore elbow. So the doctor says, do you want me to really sort this out for good? And he says, yeah, I'm getting a lot of problem with this sore elbow. Can't sleep at night. He says, no problem. And then he chops his arm off. And then he says to him, how's your elbow now? He says, oh, that's pretty good. Actually, I can't feel any pain at all. Thank you. But he's not got an arm anymore. So you can cut off your material existence, but then you don't have any interaction. You have no desires, no way of. Whereas if the arm is healthy and there's no more pain in the elbow, then you can go and play tennis and do all kinds of fun things with your arm, which you haven't got now because you just chopped it off. So the better thing is, rather than trying to chop off your material existence, but better to regain your healthy spiritual existence. And you are actually made up of happiness, Ananda, Satchit Ananda. You're eternal, you're blissful, and you're full of knowledge. That's your nature, that's what you're full of. And it's become covered over and contaminated right now. So through purification, we can regain what is actually there. There's the story of a deer. The male deer spends its life running after the smell of musk, but the musk is actually coming from its navel, but it's not aware of that. So it's running everywhere trying to find the source of this amazing smell. And in the same way, we're looking for happiness, but the real happiness is within. So rather than looking around externally, look inside and you find, oh, I am actually blissful, and I am eternal. I've always existed and I'll always exist. That kind of underpins happiness. Once you're aware of that, then you can be okay about everything else. So that's how we solve the problem of the suffering in the material world. It is said, therefore, that although the Mayavadi strive to refrain from material activities, again they fall down. So the so-called renouncer is unable to remain in meditation, and then he has to go and do nice things like open hospitals and schools. Therefore, cultivating knowledge that materialistic activities cannot give one happiness. Therefore, simply cultivating knowledge that materialistic activities cannot give one happiness, and that one should consequently cease from such activities, is insufficient. So in the beginning, Srila Prabhupada didn't so much tell the hippies that were interested about the rules and regulations. He just gave them prasadam, and he got them to chant. And then after a while, they could follow so many rules and regulations. But he didn't give them the rules and regulations in the beginning. He just gave them the spiritual taste of Krishna consciousness. And they have a program in London called Studio 108. And they don't talk about rules and regulations or having to do this or having to bow down or anything. They just have really good prasadam and they do kirtan. And then when that purification has taken place, then they come in with the rules and regulations and everything else. So upon this, whatever, like Arjuna who is fighting, Krishna. So everything we do, we do our days playing out the forest, seven populations, Guru Puja, class, and then we're really quite people are not just and then have prasadam. In fact, I'll have a lot of prasadam and take a lot of rest, and then I'll see if I can squeeze anything else in. So, and disciple means one who's disciplined by the order of the spiritual master. So, we have that structure and that order in our lives, and everything we're doing, there's a reason for it, and it's for the greater good of the community. Whether we're going out raising funds, distributing books, on Harinam, giving people the holy name, or looking after the gardens so that when people come, they're attracted, or cleaning, or preparing vegetables, or cooking. Everyone has their duty, their designated duty. And that's Sangha. Anga is limb, and Sangha means to form a body. So it's an intimate connection. If you're a limb of a body, then you can't act independently. If your left leg decides it wants to hop around for a bit when you're walking up the hill, it's not going to work, is it? You're not going to get up the hill very quickly anyway. So everyone cooperates, and then the body can function nicely. And Srila Prabhupada said that society is made up of heads, bellies, arms, and legs, and everybody has their part to play. It's not that the legs are thinking that they want to be the head, and they're envious of the head. And the head's not thinking it's better than the legs. It's just directing everything because that's what it's good at doing. And everybody cooperates. Everybody needs all the different parts of the body to function nicely. So the practical solution is to cease from materialistic activities and engage in spiritual activities. And then Prabhupada ends with Yaratat Kamano Nitra, which is that verse in the Gita, which is basically saying that if you eat things which aren't offered first for sacrifice, then you're eating pap, you're eating sin, you're just implicating yourself in further reactions. Because there's always some reaction in the material world, even if it's a carrot that you're eating, there's a reaction because somebody got exploited along the way somewhere, or some bugs got killed with some pesticide, but some way or other. But if you take the carrot and you offer it to Krishna, then the bugs get the benefit, the person who grew the carrot gets the benefit gets the benefit, and you get the benefit as well. Work for pleasing the Supreme Lord. So that's another name for Vishnu is Yajna, which means sacrifice. So when you start to take pleasure in sacrifice, then you know things are good, because your sacrifice is pleasing the person that you're doing the sacrifice for, and then automatically you become pleased. If one fails to do so, however, he remains in a life of bondage. So one day the hand decided that the belly was getting all the sweet balls, but the hand was having to do all the work, It had to make the sweet balls, offer the sweet balls, and then pick the sweet ball up, put it in the mouth, and give it to the belly. So the hand, he decided he was going to keep the sweet balls for himself. So he gets hold of the sweet ball, and he starts kind of massaging it into his palm and rolling around in it. And the belly is saying, "What are you doing?" And the hand says, "I'm not serving you anymore. I've had enough of this. I'm going to keep the sweet ball for myself." And the belly says, "Well, that's not really going to do anyone any good, is it?" And the hand says, No, I'm having a great time, actually. It's all slippery and greasy. and making this far out pancake out of it, and it's having a great time, But then after a while, the hand starts thinking, actually, I'm feeling pretty tired. And then when he rolls it back up to a sweet ball and gives it to the belly, then he feels some. So not immediately, but in due course of time, then the hand feels satisfied. So devotional service is like that. It may not seem immediately like it's really of any benefit for you, but you will start to feel more nourished and more satisfied. Any questions or comments? Yes, back to Alan.
So, is the case that any memories that we're carrying with us are just illusion? We should not pay attention to them. How should we work with that?
Shishiko Nitai Maya Pashashiki Jai. Yeah, it's like having a photograph, a mental impression. So the thing took place that the photographed. At the time, it was real, but now all you've got is a photograph. And how much fun can you get from a photograph? Say it's a photograph. In fact, the photograph could actually torture you, because you could look at this amazing Hawaiian beach that you were in 30 years ago, and there you are with your wife, who looks like Miss Hawaii, and everything looks brilliant, beautiful sky, and it's great. And all you've got now is this photograph of it taunting you. So it's the photograph is not real. It's just an impression of what took place. So your mental impressions are like photographs of things that took place. Even realizations are like that. Actually, you can have an amazing realization one day. You're chanting your japa, and Krishna's decide to dance on your tongue, and you're chanting, and you're thinking, "Wow, this is Krishna dancing on my tongue," and you're really. But the next day, you're chanting, and Krishna's not dancing on your tongue, for whatever reason. But then you have a mental impression of the day before, but that's not the same as Krishna actually experiencing Krishna dancing on your tongue. So moment by moment, we want to be conscious of Krishna all the time. And therefore, we have to go beyond just retaining mental impressions of things that happen. And that's the tendency is, wow, this is fantastic. Just let me take a mental impression of that. And then that's me now, I'm okay. I don't have to worry about surrendering to Krishna. I've just got this mental impression. Everything was fantastic. But that's not enough. Krishna wants something else from you the next day. And so continually he's pushing us on. He gives us some realization, some taste. Then the next day we have to push further on to get some other realization and some taste. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was saying that when you're chanting Hare Krishna, you have to be inventive. So just because it worked yesterday, yesterday you were wearing a pair of yellow socks and your chanting was so good, and you think, I'll put those yellow socks on again. And your chanting's not good at all. So you have to devise different ways of absorbing the mind, inspiring the mind to take to Krishna consciousness. In the early days, one of the hippies that was, he kind of grasped the idea that you should remember Krishna all the time. So he had a headband with a car aerial coming out the headband, and at the end of the car aerial was a picture of Krishna. So wherever he looked, you could see Krishna. But it doesn't work like that. So you could be doing that with your mental impressions, But what you need is a fresh connection with Krishna. And that means all the time we need to surrender. Machita Savadergani. Krishna says, if you become conscious of me, then you'll pass over Savadergani, all the Dergani, Sava, all the problems. You'll pass over them if you can just become conscious of me. And if you don't do that, then Vinankshyasi, Nasroshasi, if you don't hear, Vinankshyasi, you'll be lost.
you can have a connection with Krishna, and you can feel that, and if you keep it relevant day after day.
Well, day after day, there'll be some unwanted thing will come up in the heart. When we first take up Krishna consciousness, we have some faith. Then we start associating with the devotees. That faith gets stronger. Then we commit seriously to practicing it. We become a sadhaka. And then we go into this amazing stage of getting rid of unwanted things. That can take a while, actually, because there's a lot of... We don't get all the unwanted things in one go. We get one or two at a time. Otherwise, it would just be too overwhelming for us, So every day you'll have some unwanted thing. Or the unwanted thing that you got rid of the day before has come back. It's tapped you on the shoulder and says, remember that you got rid of me yesterday? I thought I'd just come back and say Hari Bol. Oh, you still want to get rid of me? Okay. And sometimes they can come back for a while. Remember me? And so therefore we have to be relentless in our Krishna consciousness to keep pushing. We have to be enthusiastic. We have to endeavor with confidence, which means there has to be faith from reading and associating with devotees. And then we have to be patient. And patient doesn't mean for half an hour or even a week. Patient means for decades. You've got to be enthusiastic. You've got to endeavor with confidence. And then you've got to keep pushing on with that. And then the different problems and obstacles will come up. And you have to get rid of that one. And then the next day, this other one comes up. I heard it explained like this once, actually, that if you're going around a racing track on a horse, then the very first hurdle you have to jump over is 4 o'clock in the morning. Oh, okay, 4 o'clock in the morning. Then the next hurdle, no illicit sex. Okay, I can manage that one. No intoxication. Okay, I'm okay with that. No gambling. Okay, I'm okay. No, okay, I'm okay. 16 rounds. Whoop. Okay, I'm okay with that as well. Read the Prabhupada's books for half an hour. Whoop. Okay, I'm okay with that as well. And then so you're going along, and then you see a massive mountain, and the horse practically has a heart attack. You think there's no way. The horse is like trying to go the other way. No, come on, boy, come on. And you're going along, and then as you get closer, the mountain has a funny texture on the surface of it, like canvas. And then you realize, oh, it's just a painting. And then you go clean through it. And then 4 o'clock in the morning, no illicit, no intoxication. So you just have to concentrate on those things that you can do. And when these other things come up, you continue on, and then you'll break through them. And then there's another one coming, and it seems unsurpassable. But you continue on. And sure enough, you break through it again. And you break. And eventually you get so used to these unsurpassable mountains that you realize, okay, I'll just keep going. And when it finally comes up, even if it's death, I'll just go clean through. And Krishna will be there waiting for me. The longer you do it, the more you become aware that that's what it is, actually. And, people that discontinue practicing devotional service in Krishna consciousness is because they just took that mountain too seriously. And they should have just continued on. And then when it finally came up, that whatever it was going to be, that nightmare that they were so afraid of, they'll realize, oh, it's just another figment of my imagination, It was just another mental conception. And there's no need to take it that seriously. So that takes a while to get used to how to do that, and to keep going. Don't slow down. Don't go the other direction. Stay on the horse and just keep going over the ones that you can do, They say that don't let what you can't do stop you doing what you can do. And if you keep doing what you can do, eventually you'll be able to do things that you can't do. Do what you can do. And that's all Krishna wants. He just wants you to do what you can do. And then by doing that, he'll reveal everything in due course of time, That takes some faith. And also by associating with devotees as well. Devotees say, I'm nothing special. I came from this background. Before I was a monk, I was a punk. Then I became a monk. And so I know I've been in the nitty-gritty mode of ignorance, mode of passion, and all these things. That's okay. That doesn't mean you're disqualified, That's sometimes how the mind tries to discourage us, that you're not really a proper devotee. You're not really cut out for this, Just be, you need to be honest about your situation here, But the funny thing is, then why is if our chanting is so useless and our attempt to be a devotee is so useless, then why is Maya trying to discourage us from doing it? That shows it's like being in a fight with someone, and the person says, you shouldn't really be bothered fighting me. Really, you're a weakling. Don't bother. I mean, if I were you, I wouldn't even bother. I'd get out the ring right now because I'm going to completely kill you in a minute. And you'd be thinking, well, why don't you just do it then? But he's saying that because you are actually a threat. You could actually do some damage. And therefore he's trying to talk you out of doing it, you see. So Maya's like that, don't bother chanting, don't bother doing this, don't bother, because you're useless anyway. It's a waste of time. Well, if it is a waste of time, then why are you having to stop me and tell me? That's an indication that you could do a lot of damage to her plans to keep people in the material world. And therefore she's trying to slow you down. And Maya goes especially for the leaders, because they're the ones that are enthusing everybody else. If a leader goes, then they can discourage so many. So when you take up responsibility in Krishna consciousness, then you become a target for Maya. If you're rank and file, you get hit a little bit, but not as much. But she plays the same game. But then when you show that you won't, like Haridas Thakur, Maya came up to him and she was doing all these different bodily postures. It was said it would have even bewildered the mind of Lord Brahma. And Haridas Thakur, she says, if I don't have you as my husband, I'll die. You're so attractive. And he goes, Haridas Thakur says, okay, that's not a problem. Listen, we'll do anything you want, but I'm just going to finish my rounds. If you could just hang on, The thing is, he was chanting 192 rounds. So she had to wait quite a while. And then by the time he'd finished them, she said, I'll come back tomorrow. We'll call it a night. She came back the next day, and then she started realizing, okay, this is not going to work. And then Maya actually said, everyone else is getting the mercy. Give me the mercy as well. So then Haridas Thakur gave her the holy name and told her to chant, So that's what Maya does eventually. When Maya sees that you are faithful and you want to continue on, then she's like, actually, I offer you my respect, because she respects pure devotees. She tries to facilitate pure devotees. But the ones that are insincere or pretentious, they're the ones. And that's Maya's job, really. She's just trying to sort out the sincere from the insincere. That's what she's really trying to do. Because only the sincere ones should go back to Krishna, not the insincere ones. So she's like quality control. Okay. They're coming along on the conveyor belt. What's this one? Oh, no, he's not sincere at all. Well, this one seems good. Oh, he's quite solid, actually. Okay, let him go through. She's examining everyone who's qualified. Any other questions or comments? Renus, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hari Bolo.
Thank you for your class. It's very nice. You were mentioning a lot about understanding what is our level of practice, and then kind of try to keep doing that what we can. So what are indications or understanding what is our level like? How can we find out? What is our best that we can do?
Well, it's interesting in that, I think it's called Bhagavad Gita Illuminations by Chaitanya Charan. He's saying that there's three types of surrender that Krishna's asking for. First is he's saying, if you spread this message to everybody, there's none more dear to you than me. Then he says, those who study this sacred conversation, they also achieve perfection. And then he says, and those who just hear. So for one, he's throwing the rope and the person has to climb up the rope. For another, he's throwing the rope. The person just has to grab the rope and he'll pull him out. And the third one, he's throwing the rope and there's a little seat at the end. The person's just going to sit on the seat and Krishna will pull him out. If he can just hear about Krishna for his entire life, then because Krishna knows that that's all he can do. So for ourselves, we don't know what it is Krishna wants from us. He knows what we're capable of. And then we just have to allow ourselves to be one of those categories. We're just going to hear about Krishna all the time. We're going to study, or we're going to spread the message. What are we capable of doing, and what can we sustain throughout our entire life? If it's just that we can hear about Krishna every day, then okay, Krishna's happy. If that's the best that you can do, then he's happy with that. But if we try to do the easiest thing just because we're lazy, then obviously Krishna, he's not going to be so happy that we're trying to pull a fast one on him, you know. So the best thing is to try for the top. And then if you don't make that, remember that there's always studying or just hearing. There's always those to fall back on. Not that, oh, I couldn't make it, therefore I'll do nothing, not all or nothing, you know. Which could be like an ego thing. Oh, I thought I was going to be a great devotee, and, you know, I thought I'd learn loads of slokas and people would be bound down and everyone would think I was really important. Oh, well, I don't want to bother then. And then you just completely give up, you know, rather than, oh, okay, I'm not actually capable of doing that. But I am capable of doing that, or I'm capable of doing that. So I'll do that then. That's the best that I can do. And Krishna knows what the best is that you can do. So he's satisfied with that.
Is there a lower level of just eating prasadam?
Well, Prabhupada did say you could eat your way back to Godhead by taking prasadam. But then he did also say that prasadam should be respected. So when you first become a devotee, he says you can fill yourself up to your ears with prasadam. Just completely tank up on it. But it is expected that after a while you'll cool off. When I first went to Chaitanya College, I'd visited with my uncle Krishangi, and then the first day we were there, we got up that morning, and the devotees had these plates. I'd never seen plates that size, you know, like these metal ones, like this size. And I thought that the idea was you loaded up the plate and you took it to the table and then you gave everybody like servings from it, you know. And then when I went to the table, everybody else had one of these as well. And I was thinking, how can you physically eat that amount, you know? How can you get it in your stomach? Anyway, I finished the plate and I was back up for seconds. And the walls at Chaitanya College were going like this. I must have been like, there must have been so much stuff in my system, you know. And I was like, it was coming out, and I was getting cleansed. And I was thinking, you don't need drugs if you can get this every day. This will be fine, you know. I can get high on this. And so that was the initial. For me, I was convinced if I just took prasadam every day, that would be enough. I'd go back to Godhead. If I died with all that in me, I'm practically 75% spiritual anyway from the amount of prasadam I've eaten. I'll just go straight back to Godhead, you know. So that in the beginning, Krishna will make it very easy, and he just encourages you. And then later on, he may reveal that he has other plans for you, you know. Sanatana Goswami wanted to throw himself under the wheel of the Ratha Yatra cart. And Lord Chaitanya knew, he was omniscient, you know. He says to Sanatana Goswami, I've got big plans for you. I want you to do so many things. And he did do so many things. Sanatana Goswami wrote so many amazing books and opened so many temples, excavated so many holy places in Vrindavan, which were Krishna's pastimes. There was so much that Lord Chaitanya wanted him to do. He didn't think, he had sores on his body at the time from drinking dirty water in the Jharkhand forest. And his body was just oozing all these this pus, which was foul smelling. And he was just thinking, this is I'm a waste of time, you know, I'm useless. But Lord Chaitanya had some other plan for him. So for ourselves, we may think we're like this or we're like that, but we don't know what Lord Chaitanya's plan is for us, what he wants us to do, you know. So we have to be submissive and malleable and just allow ourselves. We may have our plan of what we think we are going to do and what we're capable of doing and where we're going to go, but that may not be Lord Chaitanya's plan. And so Krishna consciousness is the art of, at least initially anyway, not seeing Krishna's face, but seeing Krishna's hand. That's the first dawning of Krishna consciousness. Oh, there's an arrangement here. This has happened like this for this reason. Then you're seeing Krishna's hand. Then once you're seeing Krishna's hand, you can maybe check out his arm and then go up to his shoulder and then go across to his face. But first of all, just try and see the hand. Once you start seeing the hand on a regular basis, then you can think about looking up at the face. Jai. ISKCON Guru Vrinda Ki. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Gaura Premanandi.
Jai.